and we did a movie with Robert De Niro. And I got real ballsy with the director, and I said, because I used to be on the set every day, because the ambulance was in the movie. And the final scene, De Niro gets shot, and he's on the stretcher and has to be put in the ambulance, and the ambulance drives away. So being involved in the theater when I was young, and De Niro being one of my idols, I knew how he's into method acting, which we did with Kenny when I was at MT. And I said to the production manager, I said, do me a favor. I said, ask if we could do the scene with him, you know. And it was a lot of red tape because there's unions and not having equity people. And De Niro loved the idea, and we did the movie. And I'm in the, it's Night in the City, which just came out. I'm in the final scene. And if that's the only thing I ever did in my life, I made it to the movies, and, you know, I'll die happy that I made it to the movies. But, yeah, it was great. And, you know, I was telling Grace on the way here, I've actually met and talked to all three of my movie idols. Al Pacino, I worked with, and De Niro, and Dustin Hoffman. And, you know, I said to her, I have a wall with all these people's pictures, signed, autographed pictures. I call it my wall of fame. And, you know, it's just incredible to not to be on the stage where I wanted to be all my life, and I must say I still regret that. I still think about it, not doing it. I did it for a while and then stopped, got engaged, got married, went into, I told you, you don't have enough tape. But I got the opportunity through a total different way, and it's just, you know, I'm really excited about being part of this again. And the one thing I was thinking when you were just talking about the sessions and time limit, I think the ideal situation for this type of thing would have been a whole weekend somewhere with all the people together for 3 or 4 days, like a convention. And I think it still could happen, and I think it would be wonderful. Definitely. I mean, when I was talking to John on the phone, I was remembering I'm one of only like 11 of us, I think. I don't remember the number now. That was, I fought for a whole summer and got enough people, and 11 of us were allowed to go for 2 years. We started as juniors and stayed on for 77, which was our senior year.
Did you have to take courses in high school?
No, what happened was, in fact, looking at John Sheehan on the tape, John Sheehan and Joanna's husband Carl came over and taught social studies, and we had to fulfill the requirements, which they allowed us to do at Maslow, but we got to participate in the rest of the MT experience. So, you know, we did what we had to do to shut them off and do what we wanted to do on the other end. But to answer your question, absolutely. There was no doubt. I started 10th grade in the other building on the wrong foot. Day one. I got into an argument with a teacher. She sent me down to the office. I had to go down to the library to prove to her I wasn't being a clown. I was, you know, and it just wasn't for me. And Grace and I were talking, actually, this is good for this topic. I was saying to her, looking at education today, and she's a teacher, I'm not in the education system, but just seeing what I see around me is that the kids do not have the alternative. And MT was not for everybody either. People used to think we were saying MT is the word, and you know we were some kind of cult following, and we were being possessed and brainwashed, and all the things that came out. But it was for me. I mean, everybody used to call me Mr. MT because I used to just this was my everything back then, and it's what I needed to come out of my shell, to develop, to mature into what I needed to do to go on to college, which there's not a spot in hell that I would have gone to college had I stayed in the regular system. I wouldn't have probably made it to 11th grade. And everything else that followed suit after that. But that doesn't exist, and it should. I mean, I think BOCES is great for kids that want that alternative.
I like BOCES, but I like the electrical things.
Right.
It was, you know,
I mean, that's something that the education system should look at, and they don't. Look how, I said to Grace in the car, there's just too many cracks, and the kids are falling through those cracks. If if people like John and Milt and Laura and Ken and everybody didn't develop MT for us, I would have fallen in the cracks. I don't know. I couldn't tell you 17 years of my life what would have happened. Look at the kids out there that are falling through the cracks. I think that's the problem. And I think it's a necessity. An MT program is a necessity for the kids that need that type of education system. The regular education system is necessary for some kids as well. I'm not saying it's totally wrong. Some kids need that structured system. They need that guidance. Some people rebelled against it, like me, and that's why I needed the alternative. The expressive way of getting to the same objective. And some kids do it other way with their hands. They're physically talented and they need that. There should be 10, 12, 15 different ways for kids to learn, and they just don't offer it. And whether it be financial or stubbornness, I don't know. It's just, they should really look at it. This type of program or this conversation that we're talking about and everything that MT stood for and did should be presented to the Board of Education, to teachers, and they should, and school districts, and they should try to develop programs.
Well, Brentwood High School is in the process of starting a program. It's basically what it is. It's for like more the troubled kids, the ones that can't function in the regular school system. And Grace DeRiggi is instrumental in putting this plan all together. So I think there might be a little flavor of Maslow seeping into this after-school program.
Well, she was there. I mean, she was part of
yeah,
this.
She's instrumental now in putting this all together. So I have a feeling that hopefully these kids that can't function with the structure will hopefully do better in this type of environment. It will be a little bit looser because obviously the system, as we know it, is failing them. So something has to be done. It's going to be like from 3 in the afternoon when school is more or less over till 6, 7 at night before the night school program starts. So it'll be that in-between period. So maybe something will come of that. But
yeah, but it's more than just Brentwood.
It happens in small steps, Steve. It really happens in small steps. We were very, very lucky. We were very lucky that MT came at a time in our lives when it did. I firmly believe things happen for a reason. And it'll happen again.
One of the problems, though, is that there isn't really the agreement on how things need to change and what is the best alternative. People know that the system doesn't work anymore, yet there's still the repetition of all those same procedures, and it never really worked. Reward, punishment, tests, the sitting in the rows, the teacher at the front, the teacher is the all-knowing, who's going to pass on this knowledge, the cramming and regurgitation that still keeps being done over and over again. And some people are saying what's needed is programs like Maslow-Toffler. It needs to be more free, more open, to put workstations so children can work at their own pace. And then you have people who say, no, it's got to be back to the classics and back to more structure and use the military schools and so I find that frustrating too that there isn't even an agreement.
Oh, even when we.
I don't think there has to be an agreement. I think that's the problem, that everybody thinks that there has to be just one way of doing it. Because for some kids need those rows. Some kids need learning centers where they can work on, this is our reading center, this is our language center, this is, with social studies area. Some kids need that. Other kids, because I hear the word structure, and Maslow, I think, was very structured. See, I feel it was. I was the one, I wanted to go to college, and I went there my senior year. So that's where my direction was. But Maslow helped me because, for me, it almost felt like being in college. You had classes, you were responsible for those classes, just like when you go to college, You're responsible to get there. Your professor could care less if you don't go in.
Well, because you're taught self-discipline. If you weren't going to do it, no one was going to be badgering you about it, and then you just weren't going to get anything back if you weren't going to do it yourself.
Exactly, but I think the problem with the educational system is that everybody's looking for this one method. Instead of saying, let's look and see if we could have different alternatives. Instead of one school, maybe we should have 4 or 5 schools, okay? And then we can fulfill the need for different kinds of kids. Especially because I see kids falling through the cracks. I'm sitting here cringing when you said about your daughter and her journal, because I do that in my class. My kids have a journal, but I don't correct it. There is no correction because that's for them to write down. And if they don't want me to read it, I tell them fold the page this way. If it's something you need to write, because you need to get it out, but you don't want me to read it, just fold it over, and I won't read it.
That's because you went to Maslow.
Well, but I think that's, for me, that's what Maslow, for me, that's what it taught me. It taught me self-discipline, and I saw that as structure. You know, I didn't see it as regimented, but I do know that there are kids who need that. So I think within our educational system itself, people have to start looking at different alternatives, many different alternatives, not just one, not saying this is it and we're going to save the world, because we're not with one thing, but maybe with 4 or 5 or 6 different schools, types of schools, then at least a person can have a choice as to where to go, whether it be military school, whether it be a regular setting as we know it, traditional, you know, or something as Maslow-Toffler. I think people need alternatives, and you can't just say one is best for everyone.
School starts out that way too. School starts out in preschool where they have like 10 different categories to choose from, and then it goes to a regular basic structure. So what happens? Where does it go? It starts out that way.
And then people start to hate school after all.
And they love it when they first go,
And they go,
because they can do what they want. You know, you get to pick as many things as you want to do, and it varies. But then the basic school gets to it, and it stops.
I have a suggestion. If we do decide to have this convention and try to get everybody together,
yes.
I think in light of the atmosphere of Maslow, I think Woodstock would be a great place to have it.
I'm game for that.
I think that would fit right in.
That's the first thing that I thought of, because I just, actually, when I first spoke to John and Grace, I had no clue what was taking place. I just knew that something was happening, and it involved MT past, and I had to be here. Not that I had, meaning someone was making me come, that I had to be here, meaning for me. But then when I realized, when talking to you on the phone, that other people were here that I hadn't seen, that I wanted to see, and other things happened that I missed, I was frustrated until you just said that there's tapes of that I'll be able to see. But that's not enough for me.
I definitely want to see more people. This isn't enough.
But you are lucky that something was preserved for all of you.
Absolutely.
That was not done for regular students in a regular program.
Right, like
Sharon put a lot of work in putting these pieces together.
But Steve, I'm glad you said that for another reason. I want to underscore the fact, why did I do all this? Why have I saved it? Because part of our underlying philosophy 20 years ago was that when you went to school, part of high school was to get a look at yourself, to see you not just as you see yourself, but as also as other people see you. And in some cases, what other people see is very different from what you see. And that meant taking a lot of pictures. It meant taking a lot of photographs. It meant taking a lot of movies. It meant taking wherever we went, you recall it. Pictures being taken, movies being taken, television being, the media center provided us with black and white, reel-to-reel, when none of the schools had video yet. Forget about color. They weren't thinking of that. It was like, that was a cost factor. But meanwhile, we had it. And so you couldn't get away from seeing yourself. Well, all of those archives are now, 20 years later, don't fit into 1 hour for 1 year. There's much more stuff that I haven't converted yet. But it's the image. If you go into the men's room and the ladies' room here, there are no mirrors 20 years later.
I want you to know, I just thought of that. And the bathroom that they opened originally had no mirrors. But when you go into the faculty, quote-unquote, bathroom, there's a mirror in there.
Yes.
I just was thinking about that, but you just said it.
Yeah. And those things are all connected.
Teachers got beyond breaking them.
That's
It's the liability factor.
Yeah.